Past year, I've played a highly modified version of Curse of Strahd, and it was one of my favourite campaigns that I've ever ran. It taught me about the best ways to make villains and NPCs, about burning it all down, and a tip I'll use for all of my characters going forwards that I'm going to save for the end. Here's what I learned from over 200 hours of DMing Curse of Strahd. A common pitfall that some DMs make is to make the BBEG seem holier than thou. Someone who they only really hear of you-know-who style until the finale of the campaign. While this can succeed at painting the picture of someone who is all-powerful and so mighty that they don't even see your party as a threat, it runs the risk of making the party feel like there's no stake for them in the conflict, especially the personal one between them and the BBEG. Strahd is a villain who is ever present in the party's lives. In fact, I introduced him in just the third session in person. He stalked the party while they tried to sneak Irina out of the village of Barovia, just to remind them who's the real boss is. But he continued to crop up in towns and locations throughout the valley, even hosting a dinner party. The party got that perfect chance to talk to him, learn about his history, his backstory, what his motives are, from the word of mouth of Strahd himself, and also they got to see and feel his power firsthand. It was the perfect way to build personal stakes to the party, bring them together as a collective against this foe, and to spark some sympathy for the villain. And this led to a far richer story than would have happened otherwise if he just showed up in session 30 and they got to kill him as the final boss. If you're still quite a way into your campaign and your party haven't met the BBEG yet, consider dropping them in and getting them to have an interaction. It doesn't have to be combat, it doesn't have to be deadly, but getting them talking is one of the ways that you can build some better stakes for your party members. Originally, one of the reasons that I ran the Curse of Strahd campaign module was because I felt too busy to run a homebrew campaign for a second group. I stupidly thought that running a pre-written campaign would reduce my workload, and boy was I wrong. The way that I now consider running pre-written campaigns is that they're just a skeleton for you to build on your own story, your own flavour into the module. There's still a whole lot of work that needs to go into fleshing out the locations, areas, NPCs, adding additional quests, making them all fit together into a cohesive story, and of course, adding in extra content based on your party's actions. The book can't account for absolutely everything that they do, so you need to be prepared to add things in that make sense given what your party have done. For example, the Curse of Strahd module book definitely didn't account for one of my party members wanting to join up with Babalai Saga, so that was a whole new questline that I had to implement myself, but it made it feel much more unique to our campaign, our party, and our group, and therefore it was more enjoyable. The app I used is Obsidian. It was fantastic for bridging the gap between what was already written in the campaign module and what I added in additionally later. And I just added sticky notes throughout the book to say where there might be contradictions or things that I have added now that wouldn't make sense with the rest of the campaign. And that's not to say that you couldn't run the campaign completely by the book, although in my experience, it might feel a little bit railroady if you continue to run it exactly as it's written word for word when your party are making decisions that the book doesn't account for. You'll find the experience will be all the more richer for the bespoke content that you create and put into the campaign to match your party and their decisions. I mean, it only takes looking at some of the quest prompts to know that you really need to add some stuff of your own. I'm a forever DM, so you can bet that I know that we'd spend a lot of time, research, effort, and money baking these locations and NPCs that are really exciting for our players to discover, learn about, and explore. It's truly a labour of love, but sometimes we can be a little bit precious about the things that we've created. I mean, it's quite natural, really, when we've spent hours making things, but this love makes us weak, and we miss out on some of the most dramatic moments when we become precious about what we have. This tendency to hold on to the things that we've spent a lot of time creating. Yet, one of the best and most memorable sessions across those 200 hours was the one where Vallaki burnt to the ground. The fall of a town that I had spent a lot of time adding bespoke content to, quest lines that had started and ended here, and relationships between NPCs that had blossomed into something beautiful for the players and for me to witness. Even the people that the players had learnt to hate, they spent a lot of time here, felt safe, had shopped, and there were people who they thought they had saved. Everything was gone and the party had to flee, leaving Vallaki a burning cinder in the background. And most of everyone that they knew were either dead or in hiding. It practically wiped out over 4,000 words of content that I had written, and given the choice, I would absolutely do it again. Take something that the party hold dear, particularly a location where they feel safe, and burn it all down. Gives that party that sense of isolation and dread that sometimes is missing when you have a safe place to call home. And what's more devastating than a villain that can't be reasoned with, someone who just wants to watch the world burn? This is a piece of advice that I actually read before becoming a DM, and it's something that I've held dear to me my entire career as a dungeon master. Of course, your mileage may differ, but Curse of Strahd only embedded this into me, and is something that I will take forwards into every single one of my campaigns. Fi, Ashley, Preston Harvey, Roman Bellic. How many characters are there that almost ruin the essence of a game with their continuous mouthiness? You're going about, doing your thing, having a blast when Fi pops out of your sword in Skyward Sword and tells you how to solve a puzzle that you're already on the way to doing, or gives you directions to a place when you were just running some errands and side quests. And that's sometimes how DMPCs can come across. They can take the agency and autonomy out of the player's hands by giving them unwanted hints. Or, one of my personal biggest gripes as a DM, jumping in at the last second to save the PCs. It's not the job of the DM to be the hero as well, it's just your job to facilitate the story. And DMPCs can bridge a dangerous gap. Nothing feels worse for a player, in my opinion, than a DM dropping in a main character that is more important than the rest of the party all put together. The son of a king, a prince, a magical being that was gifted down by the gods for the DM to just play with and never let die and save everyone over and over and over again. What I learned from Strahd is that if it's thematically appropriate for an NPC to come along with the party, and they ask, then that's okay. But don't let them outstay their welcome. Don't do all the puzzles for them. Don't give them unwelcome hints or tell them how to do things. In fact, one of the best ways to do it is just keep the NPC quiet unless they're spoken to. It's their game, and it's up to them to interact with the world, and that includes some of the characters. Of course, this is just a general hint, and there may be times where it is appropriate for for an NPC to take more of the forefront, but those times are very, very rare. And that's not to say it's not okay to have important NPCs, but if they start to overshadow the party, that's where it's gone too far. And it can be easy with such interesting characters as Ismark, Irina, Esmeralda, and Rodolfo to get carried away and use them and see them as a vessel for your opinion. So give them their own goals, missions, quests, things that they want to achieve, and have them do it alongside the party. The NPC can go and fulfill their own quest and mission while the party do theirs, and that stops them from becoming an Ashley or a Fi, an annoying thorn in the side that only serves to take the fun out of the game. Remember, the NPCs are complex people living their lives, not vessels for exposition, hints, tips, and unwanted saves. Very few people in reality are all good or all bad, and the heroes and villains that are very rarely the ones that captivate us and stay with us for a long time. Those that remain with us, Boromir, Darth Vader, Zuko, Thanos, Joel, and Gollum, to name a few, are all characters that have stood the test of time because even though they are good or evil, oftentimes they contain a little bit of that other side within them, a spark of good or a shadow of evil within the overarching whole. The yin-yang exists for a reason, and good and evil aren't two sides of a coin, they're a spectrum of grey. Strahd isn't an unsympathetic, wholly evil character, or at least he wasn't from the start. He was someone who loved and lost, was an unfavoured brother for a handsome prince that was promised, and made a pact in desperation for something that he had longed for his whole life. While he is undoubtedly evil, there are parts of his backstory and person that draw sympathy from the party. He's relatable, and this can make for some fantastic RP moments between the villain and your characters, and amongst your players when they're away from the villain discussing their motives and what they need to do. Some might call for talk instead of fighting, or others may think that his good parts don't wholly redeem him of the evils that he's done. What a dramatic performance. And similarly, allies don't need to be all good either. Davian was a very valuable ally and a powerful leader of the Wereraven clan, but he was self-centered and cared only about preserving himself, his direct bloodline, and his winery more than the good of Barovia. On the whole, he was a good guy, but he was too proud to make any use of it, and the party didn't trust him by the end, despite the good that he'd done. So when you next make your villain or important NPC, consider that yin-yang. If they're good, put in that shadow of evil, and if they're bad, give them some redeeming quality or factor or an aspect of their personality that's relatable. I hope the lessons that I learned could be helpful for you and give you some food for thought for your next preparation session. There's plenty of other lessons that I've learned throughout my career as a DM, and if you're interested in hearing about the other things that I've gained in my knowledge, then leave a comment down below asking any questions and I'll try and answer them as best as I can. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and see you next time.